calculator's cleared, so we're ready to go. Second, the blue button, second plus 712, just to get it cleared, so we're all starting back at normal. Okay, and then to graph this, what button do I have to press? There's not any more of them? Go ahead and grab a piece of graph paper, and then you can just put it on there.
I don't think I got the sheet, so I didn't do it.
I handed them out yesterday. All right. Okay, so what do we press to graph something? How do we graph something? Before the graph button, we got to plug the equation in first. Y equals, yeah. So right here on the left, mine is worn off, but yours might still be there. So press the Y equals button right here. We're going to graph it. Press Y equals. Okay. And we need to type the absolute value of x minus 2. Do you guys remember how we get to absolute value? We hit the math button. So the math button is the third one down. We're going to hit the math button. And then we're going to go over to number. So we're going to do the right arrow, go over to number. And it's the very first one, ABS, absolute value. Okay? And then inside of that, we need to type x minus 2. So if you look on your calculator, the x button is right here. It's under the mode button. And we're going to type x minus 2. Now, remember, we have two buttons that have a minus sign on them, so we call this the minus button right here. It's above the plus button, the minus button. This is the minus button. This is the negative button. So however you would read the problem, if you read it out loud, that's what you type, okay? So when I read this out loud, I say x minus 2, so I'm going to use the minus button. When I read this one out loud, I say negative 1/2, so I would use the negative button. Do you guys see the difference? Okay, so I'm going to use the minus button. I'm going to use the one off to the side, x minus 2, and then I'm going to hit the right arrow to get past that, and then I got plus 3. We all got it? Yes? We're good? Okay, and then we're going to hit the graph button so we can see what it looks like. And then before we even start drawing this on our paper, let's move our calculators. We're going to figure out what the vertex is. So the vertex we see from this number and this number. And we look at the number inside and we say, what's the opposite of that number? Positive 2. So the x-coordinate of the vertex is positive 2, and then the y-coordinate of the vertex is exactly what this number is. So the y-coordinate of the vertex is 3. So the vertex is the point 2, 3, over 2, up 3. That's the vertex. And so for us to graph this, we're going to look for the vertex in the calculator. Okay? And that's going to be the middle of the graph. So I'm going to grab my calculator. And I'm going to look at the table, and I'm going to look for the vertex on the table. So I'm going to hit the blue button. I'm going to hit second graph. Second graph. And I want to find the point 2, 3. So if I look, there's the point 2, 3. So now to be able to graph this fully, I'm going to graph 2 points on the left side. So I'm going to graph the point 1, 4, and 0, 5. 2 points on the left side. And then I'm going to graph 2 points on the right side. 3, 4, and 4, 5. And that'll give me the whole shape. Okay? So 2, 3 was the vertex in the middle. 2 points on the left side. 2 points on the right side. So 1, 4, and 0, 5. 1, 4... 0, 5, and then 3, 4, 4, 5. There's my V-shaped graph. Okay. So now, when we take this and write an absolute value equation for it, we have two halves of the graph. We have the left half and we have the right half. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do this squiggly bracket. And I'm going to go ahead and show this right here. This is where we divide it in half. So the number that divides the graph in half is an x value of 2. That divides the graph in half. Okay? So I have the left side of 2 and I have the right side of 2. The left half and the right half. So I'm going to say one part of the equation is going to be if x is left of 2, if it's less than 2. One part of the equation is going to be if x is to the right of 2, if it's greater than 2. Does that make sense? Okay. The left part of the graph has what? A negative slope or a positive slope? It has a negative slope. So basically, it's the negative version of the equation, okay? So what I'm doing now, if you watch the video, I showed you kind of where this comes from, and what I'm doing now is I'm going to show you a shortcut, okay? So that when we do these problems, we don't have to draw a graph every single time. So what we do is we say, okay, the left half is the negative version, so I'm going to take the equation and I'm going to say the negative version of the equation. So you'll notice I didn't write my absolute value signs as absolute value signs. I wrote them as parentheses this time because I'm splitting it from one answer into two answers. And whenever I do that, if you guys remember when we were solving absolute value, as soon as we took it from one absolute value equation and we found the two answers, that's when we took those vertical lines away. We said we don't need these vertical lines anymore because now we're finding our two answers. Take them away. So here we're taking one absolute value equation and we're writing it as two lines, and that's why we don't need the absolute value symbols anymore. So the left side is the negative version. The right side is the positive version. Do you guys see how that has a positive slope? It goes up to the right. So now I'm going to say, okay, the right side is the positive version. Now, in math, we know it's not proper to just leave parentheses in something. We always expect to simplify. So if you have a negative in front of some parentheses, people always say, well, yeah, of course you should take the negative and you should distribute. So a negative multiplied by x is what? Negative x. And a negative multiplied by negative 2 is what? Positive 2. Right? And then we have a plus 3 on the end. And so negative x plus 2 plus 3 gives you what? Positive 5. So negative x plus 5. Okay? Now, if we go look at our equation, does this fit the left side? Is it true that the left side has a y-intercept of 5? And a slope of down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. Does that fit? Yeah, okay. So what we did is, even though we had the graph, we basically didn't look at the graph to actually find the equation. We kind of ignored the graph, and we found the equation without really thinking about it. Does that make sense? Okay. So we said negative x plus 5, and we're going to say if x is on the left part of the graph, to the left of 2, okay? And then over here, we don't really have anything to distribute inside the parentheses, so we're just going to say x minus 2 plus 3. And if I have x minus 2 plus 3, what do I get? 1. X plus 1. Now with this one, let's kind of trace it and let's see if this works. Okay, is it true that this other half here has a y-intercept of 1 and a slope of up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1? That is true. Okay, so that one works as well. So this kind of shows us that we don't really need the picture. We can have the graph and it's kind of nice to have, but you don't need the graph. You can do it without it. That's what that tells us. Now, one of these has to have an equal sign with it, because we're going to say, I used one part of the graph for the left side of 2, I used one part of the graph for the right side of 2, but the point 2 is there. It's not invisible, it's actually on the graph. And so I put an equal to sign on one of them. It doesn't matter which one. You just choose one and you put an equal to sign to show, like, yes, 2 is part of the graph. And then you say you're done. Are always what? It's probably like the personality trait that would make you interested in social studies might also mean that you're not as organized. The personality trait that makes you good at math means that you might be more organized. Because math is a precision type of thing. It's a critical thinking, precision, organized. Thank you. All right. Okay. The next one. So let's grab our calculators. We're going to graph this. So I hit the y equals button. I hit the y equals button to get back here. I want to get rid of the equation that is up here right now. And so I'm going to hit the clear button, which is by the right arrow. So I'm going to hit the clear button to get rid of that. And the first thing we're going to type is a -1/2. A -1/2 is the first thing we're going to type. Hold on, it froze.